Yeah, I think a starting point
Yeah.
is just sort of talking about what we were seeing and yeah, I don't know. I got like a sense pretty quickly. I kind of thought this would happen where as proposals started coming in, kind of like blocks that did I write this somewhere? I thought
I think
this.
you
They
mentioned
would
it last time.
yeah, that they'd start like we'd be organizing them. Like this goes with this and this can like let's edit this one and sort of mix and match and change up which because they all seem to relate a bit. Some of them seem to emerge as priorities, I think. So yeah, I think we can just discuss amongst yourselves.
Discuss amongst your peers. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also seeing that. Definitely kind of like almost feels like some of them could be like slapped right together multiple times and in different variations, and they kind of like change the framing of each other and how they're executed. So it's a bit kind of like some of them are a little more like towards where we want to go, and others are like how we want to get there, and they can kind of be cross combined.
Yep. Where do we want to start? I mean, I don't know if I think, oh yeah. So as far as actionable, maybe this is a good place to start because I've been feeling into attention and Dave and I have talked about this with overthinking over planning versus just doing something. So this is where I like Shahruz's movement into let's just do something super small because I think it starts answering a lot of the questions that we have or a lot of the other proposals because things just start popping up and then there's a force function once you start getting into action where well we have to decide how we're going to collaborate, we have to decide what's going to happen with the APIs on the back end, yada yada yada. Right. So I like that, and I like that it's small. Like keep it small. We've kind of been doing that, and then we'll increment, and yeah, it's cumulative over time. So action-wise, I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's like the interesting transition, or like maybe even parallel, like between the sync and async in that too. It's like have the small thing be sync, and then kind of learn from that / just be like working asynchronously in the background, and then using what was learned to kind of help with the asynchronous pattern as well.
Yep. Yeah, like the code collaboration style that you pointed out, CJ, I think that's super interesting, and all of the questions there are good. And my sort of overarching question was, how much of this do you decide ahead of time? Like certain things you probably have to decide in order to even like work together. But some of the other things, they'll just come up. I think that was my sense, but I don't code in teams often, so.
Yeah, I think at least for me, it's like a little different. I guess I'm used to just like a bunch of things being imposed on me at work. Is like I walk in and it's like everything's decided, and people are like, okay, here's how you do things. I'm like, okay, I can do things like that. It's no problem. And now I'm like, okay,
how
like,
do I want to do things? Yeah.
Yeah, / like how does everyone else as a group want to do things? But again, like I think the small individual session can help answer a lot of those like basic questions. Like just by doing it and enacting it, it'll kind of naturally come out and naturally form. And some of them are like less important than others. Like certainly things like code style is like, like nice to have, but like probably not like really essential for like getting moving.
Yeah, I think it develops too. Like you start writing together, and like the process of writing together, you start to develop vernacular and like sort of patterning styles that work well. And then you can settle into a sort of, this is how we like to work in relation to what we're trying to drive towards. And then there's a sort of linguistic style that comes with that. It's chunky at first though, because you have to toss stuff out and you're like, does this fucking work? I don't know. And then you square it away.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
Go ahead, John. No, go ahead.
Well, one thing that I think makes this easy in a sync coding session is pair programming, because one person is essentially driving, making the decisions, accepting input from everybody else. And it doesn't mean it's hierarchical. Like oftentimes the driver is just like, just the person. I mean, you don't want two keyboards involved, but it does sort of make this funnel where decisions happen with a group, and then only one person is like committing things to a file. And so that I feel like will be a very nice sort of point where, you know, how do we write this commit message? I mean, are we using past tense? We're using current tense. It's like, it's just, it has to be figured out right there. Everybody else is right there. They have full context on this decision. So that's, I think the like mini sync versions of future async things will be a perfect way to, yeah, like get that stuff sorted out.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's cool.
There's a thing that's happening, I believe, because like CJ just mentioned something, and Dave and I have been talking offline about how you've worked in the past with other groups or in certain like work situations where we're figuring out how each other work. And like we've done this to an extent, but this is just a very like, it's getting like, we're going into the engine room now. And I think things get, yeah, I mean, people have their weird, not quirks, but I guess it's quirks. Like I like to work like this, or I work in this style. And my guess is there's probably like the theme of, okay, how are we going to do this together in the, not anxiety or like self-consciousness, but there's something here about like, what is it that I'm doing? Is it okay? Like, what do they think about that? I think that comes into play a bit. I don't think it's strong, but it's there. So I'm picking up on this. So it's kind of cool. It's weird to atomize things and like pick it apart like we're doing and have this like this discussion and this level of awareness. Like I've never done this with a group before.
Yeah.
Same.
Like not wanting to step on anyone's toes, but no one's taking that first step either.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I've been in other environments where it's more out of fear, like of screwing things up, repercussions. Like that's not it here. Like I think it's actually driven by like a sort of desire to, you know, shepherd things and care things. But I think a lot of actions in this environment that we're working with, like things like Git and deployments to servers and code and branch names, like they feel hard to reverse because once it's kind of on, it's just easier to go with it even if you're not happy with it, which is fine. But then it's like, if only there was like sort of like soft layers where you could almost propose things and kind of just be like, well, this is how I'm going, and then as people like gain confidence, you sort of also like go faster. But it's sort of about like getting that feedback cycle out into the open and I guess more explicit and clear.
Yeah, that's like soft proposals. Like Dave and I have been talking a lot about the sort of masculine, feminine, in part because of being in Portland and using like analogies of like womb and phallic, because we've also been listening to some philosophers who, there's a whole wavelength with this, but like there's a balance here, and striking the balance and finding what the balance is with the team and like what people's level of comfort is with. You can't be totally like receptive and just the feminine, because then nothing will ever get done. There has to be some amount, like, because that's just holding space, sort of is the analogy, which we're all pretty good at that, it seems like, which is nice. But we've all also learned ways of taking action and being more pointed, like we need to do this. Yeah, I think that's sort of more painting a picture of what I see happening.
Yeah, we're figuring out our engine. Like, how does it, you know, how does it run? Like, what drives it, and in what direction? What are we aiming at, right? Like, what is the
Maybe he'll come back.
This is the switch to move, right? Because we can, you know, like how. Am I frozen still?
Yep.
Yeah.
Lost all of that.
I heard like 2 words out of that sentence, I think. Don't worry about it. There's nothing.
Yeah, I think it's the echo. Hold on.
The place is a little too small.
It's not small. It's just there's effectively only one room, which is the bedroom, like that closes off. So there's only one place to go. Oh, I think he's going to use his phone to hotspot. That makes sense.
Correct.
Oh, I'm so annoyed. I upgraded my cell phone plan to get more data and then figured I could hotspot off of it. And then you go to hotspot and they're like, oh, you are not allowed to hotspot on this plan. I'm like,
Assholes.
what the, like, yeah. When is this bullshit going to end?
Yeah.
Stop gatekeeping the internet.
We just need to create our own wireless internet service provider.
Hell
Exactly.
yes.
All right, new proposal.
There is a team working on like a decentralized like Wi-Fi hotspot thing with the cryptocurrency. I think it's called Helium. It's kind of interesting, but they're very early. It's still kind of doing Internet of Things kind of lo-fi stuff.
Okay, so the engine, we're going into the engine room, trying to figure out how the engine runs and how we steer it, and like I think roles too, right?
Sure.
There's also some of this, like, so it's interesting because the three, Shahruz, John, and CJ, all three of you code. So who does what in like, and I think there's probably, my sense is that there's an easy way that this sort of shakes out where it just makes sense that someone's like, yeah, I like to work in this like sort of space. Like, I don't mind doing this generally, and then it'll evolve based on different tasks. But the question is, yeah, how do you approach figuring that out? I think is what, and then the proposal, as it were, is small little experiments just to see.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that plays to the strengths that we have, that we're willing to like just go do a thing. Fuck it, what's the worst that can happen? We just blow the whole thing up, and that's fine. That's what GitHub's for.
Yeah, I guess it's strange, like a little bit weird for me because I've done so many solo projects that I'm used to just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to write the whole code base and not ask any questions, and I'll just answer all the questions like for myself. And now it's like, when does a thing become a question versus when does it just become code, and then that gets reviewed later on, kind of a thing. Like, is it possible to just write a big chunk of code and submit it, and then like, is anyone actually going to review that? Is, you know, like how is, like, that's what I'm interested in. Like, the small things will make sense because it's like, okay, it's like this small digestible piece of code. But once you start getting to like multiple files, or, you know, you just like wrote like a chunk of like back end or front end code, how does that maintain like digestibility for other people? Is that something we want to like have videos to go with or something like this? Or like I've tried to do that in the past just to kind of like grok like really what went in. But then it's, you know, once you have that, how does someone go and say, okay, actually, like maybe this should be changed or thought about? Is that all part of like GitHub issues? I don't know. At least like that's one thing that I'm trying to understand is like, how do bigger changes like get implemented? So the small things totally like make sense in this way to me because it's like very easily readable, but the larger things is a little like, I'm not sure. And maybe that's also part of just trying it and seeing what happens too.
Yep.
I think I've got a very, or go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've got a very similar background to CJ, I think, in terms of doing mostly solo stuff and learning how to do things that way. But yeah, I think like with GitHub, like a pull request and like being able to do a review, discuss there, you know, and then a pull request can have multiple commits associated with it. So that can develop over time too. So I feel like it's nice. GitHub has some nice structure there for exactly this kind of problem, hopefully.
Okay.
Also, the Loom sort of recorded thing, that's kind of the style that I myself and David work with, and it definitely works. I mean, we kind of figure out when we need it and when we don't, and it's kind of something that we sort of develop over time. But there's PRs where I wouldn't make sense of what just happened, and nor would he of mine, like just by looking at the diff thing. And so that's where a video like really just gives you a narrative, because you can be like, here was how everything was. Here's my code and how it changed it, and here's how it works now. And it's really nice for also like historical purposes, because PRs, as you create them, they're very like now focused, which is nice because you don't really need to worry about like all the documentation and stuff, but they're very hard to go back to and understand what happened. If you have a video, it like really gives you something concrete to be like, okay, like let me reload the state. Why was this change made back then? What were the issues associated with it? Like what were the questions and disagreements associated with it? So yes, definitely like PR as a concept is great because it gives people like this ability to pull and push on the changes that are sort of about to happen. And I think for anything that's kind of more complex than a couple files, a video recording is incredibly helpful.
Are you saying PR?
Yep, pull request.
Pull request, got it.
Sorry,
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So
it's like a form of journaling. It's like a video journaling. Trying to, so like when CJ was talking about, there's something else in there, like notes in GitHub or something, or
issues.
Issues, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm getting the sense of this. Like in the past, the bigger like group work software project that I've been in, it was all through, like we like didn't talk basically. It was like just do everything through like these other pieces of software, which then you'd have to come together to sync. So I like this little added, it's like a meta layer. Let me tell you about what I've done and how I've done it and like how I'm relating to it. That makes sense.
I think I'm also very curious about what PRs look like against the backdrop of discussion that's outside of it, because oftentimes they're very removed. Like there's beautiful discussion in the PR. You're like, oh, all the technical questions make sense, but why? Why is this PR even here? Well, like because the PR only describes what it's trying to do. Very rarely does it actually go into the layer above it that like led to it being created. And so if that's like baked into the original sort of discussion from which it spawned, like an easy like backlink, I think it helps to kind of be able to see it from both sides, because just looking at a PR, will usually not give you like the full picture. And just seeing like a PR link within a Slack discussion, it kind of is just like a portal somewhere, but you don't really see the weight of all the discussions and questions that arose within it until you go into it. So, I mean, over time, I could really see those two things kind of getting closer to where the discussion about like the non-technical aspects is very close, if not almost within the same environment as the technical discussion, and everybody can hear each other sort of talking about it, even if they don't understand all the technicalities or like the broad picture.
That's one of the stress I was feeling in doing these comps and like trying to attach the like visual language to something like this hyper conversation, and then like what is the relationship to the code base and the technical decisions, and they're all feeding on each other. In the past, I would just have to like put together this beautiful package, be like, this is how it'll all work, and then some engineer would be like, all right, I'll build all that, I guess. And then in better environments, we were able to just, small teams could just, be like, we're going to do this and I'm going to do that, and so this allows you to scale the thing a lot bigger. Yeah. So, okay. So the Loom videos are like a sort of conversational layer in this thing that like, like anybody can watch them, right? They're contextually conversational. Okay. So we're adding a conversational layer to this thing, because there were times when I was, yeah. So like when you're talking about like in the PR, this is context for the PR, right? And then that's in a block sense, this is the context information, right? Like in its bluntest form. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Interestingly, Loom is also really pushing the back and forth nature of these. So usually people just record a Loom and send it, but they're now like really emphasizing that you could like pick a point, click record, and start talking back at the Loom, and that's going to go to the person that recorded it. And then they're like trying to like give build this back and forth conversation.
That is
I don't know how
interesting.
effective it is. I've only done it once or twice. I think it's because there's like also this like layer of friction about recording a Loom, which you know you got to click record, you got to make sure you didn't fub like your speech and everything makes sense, and then it's got to upload. And I've had uploads fail on like shitty Wi-Fi, and so it's kind of like there's a cost. But once you do it, and the link is sent to another person, or I get a Loom, I'm just like, thank goodness, like I could finally like understand what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this hump, but once you get over it, it's actually really, really great.
I think the way to look at this is that that thing is not going anywhere. Like it is very useful, meaning that people will continue to build with this pattern until it's sort of established in our toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like it.
It's just, you know, capture some of the initial momentum. But yeah.
You're breaking
We
up.
lost you before initial momentum.
It's only when he starts talking, like actually like getting into something that it like cuts out.
I wonder if it's the video thing again. If you cut the video off, if it'll do better, because I think it's like some of the movement that you might be doing too.
It's possible, actually. That's what killed my video over and over again.
Your hand clapping got in the way, Dave.
Probably. Anyways, exactly. I have to sit perfectly still, pretend like there's no movement. Like masking out a JPEG.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah,
like
exactly.
month in Watulco, my stand-ups, I would literally just sit still. Like I would just be like talking like this, just to avoid the algorithm from noticing pixel differences. Yeah, it's the only way they could get video of me.
So I'm gonna leave it. I don't want to go down this road. Okay.
All right. Maybe that's one we can take offline. That's an interesting one though.
Dave, are you with us?
No, not really.
Oh man. Oh man.
I'll try to switch over again.
Where are you on 5G or are you on Wi-Fi?
The old
switching.
It's so weird how it just changes too. Like it's working fine and then all of a sudden it's just like nah.
Yeah. What if y'all both hop on the same mic? It sounded okay on Discord at least when y'all were sharing it.
Oh yeah. Dave, you could come out here and we could use just one audio, but you could have your own video. He's gone.
He disappeared.
Gosh, there's a premise for a nice horror movie here.
It's just like that. Disappears in
Let me
real life.
move that and I'll come move over there. All right. Pause.
It's always amazing, like how technical struggles still happen.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. Honestly, like now when I'm on a personal call with somebody and the Wi-Fi knocks out and like I just get angry. I'm just like, just visualizing every node and like internet route between us, and I'm just like, motherfucking like everything. Why is everything so bad? You know? And I'm just like, calm down, calm down. Just re-say the thing that they didn't hear. It'll be fine. But yeah, as a side effect, I have been sending more voice memos now because you could be so much more like sure that the message is going to be A, like recorded in one piece and be received in one piece. And it still has the whole depth of voice. It's just a little more asynchronous. So been kind of enjoying those more lately.
I've been thinking about a little audio message game app communicator thing where you can put limits or frictions on the number you can send, or you can make little agreements to stay in touch with somebody via audio messages. They expire. These, some like telephone equivalent but message thing through audio.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, because the people I used to talk to on the phone, it's impossible now. So like people randomly call me, but I'm like, who knows where the fuck I'm going to be? And so the likelihood that I can get a call, but we still like to communicate via voice. So there's something. Hi, we're back.
All right. Part of this, what I thought was interesting was the hyper conversation. And there's this thing of trusting that as a group, it's not like, it's like a hyper build. So you're like a hyper object that we're trying to build. And there's conversation that needs to happen in order to build the thing. So everyone's throwing out like their piece to the puzzle. And again, there's this like sort of like concern about, is this going to work for the group? So we're building trust that it's going to work when you throw out your piece, that people are going to figure out how to orient to it, or they're going to ask if they don't know how to orient to it. So this was stemmed from your thing where you recorded a Loom. Yeah. And you're like, he was talking, we were talking offline. He's like, I'm not sure like where this fits, and I was like, I don't know either, but we can talk about it. Yeah. Like you put it out because you work this way. So there's sort of this resting and knowing that how you work will work with the group. We just are going to figure out how it works. And I don't know, I'm sure there's going to be things where it doesn't really work well with the group, and we'll figure it out, and you'll just be like, okay, I'm going to cut that shit off. But I don't know what that would be. Like, just casually verbally abusive sometimes.
It's the only way I can. It's the only way I can.
Yes. Just once every other Friday.
Everywhere.
Once every other Friday.
Be like Festivus.
Really aggressive in his pull requests. Wow. The language. I'm shocked.
So there's
I'm expecting
one thing here that you're mentioning is like the future, which is like, is everybody else going to be okay with these changes? And like, is everybody aware of like why I'm making these changes? But another thing I think is like just trying to spread what has happened. Maybe at some sort of regular interval, like a Friday, where one person that's been digging around in the code base and has a better sense of what other things have happened just makes a Loom that's like, well, here's what else has changed, and here's kind of where things sit today as opposed to last Friday. And in GitHub, you can also sort of tie this to actual like branches and releases, so you can kind of say like versions 0.1, version 0.2, and even if everybody wasn't like totally in sync on what was happening, at the very least or like on why it was happening and part of that decision-making process, at least they now know, and they can like, make future changes accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I like this. It's like repo journalism.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
There's so many aspects to what we're doing that is like this meta journalistic sort of thing. So like the thing that John proposed about the, what was it? The open source library ecosystem. I was like, woo, like I got excited because it's fun to sort of categorize things as they're coming in. Like, I think we can do that sort of on a parallel track, because certain things will pop up where we need to find this thing and we don't know what that thing is. And so there's sort of like a call to arms, like, okay, can everyone go spend a little bit of time, or someone doesn't
bug your friends or bug your past CTOs and
time, and they're like, sorry, I'm out, and someone else is like, I'm free today and this is interesting to me, so I'm going to do it. And then we start collecting them, and I think over time that would be a cool sort of, not product, but there's something where we can show, like, we've been looking at things like a library and we chose these.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, simply having the library you chose next to 5 other alternatives that you considered, there's like entire websites dedicated to that, but that's the whole problem. They're websites, they're destinations. You have to know about them to even put them on there, and then you have to know about them to search them. If it's just part of your natural building process, then every reference to those external libraries will be like aggregated, and you could just sort of explore projects based on that. It's kind of like, looking at a repo and seeing who's forked it, where has that code ended up, why was it forked, who was involved. And yes, I mean, it can happen in parallel. You can also just kind of like attach little comments to it, like, we switched from this one to this one because, and like now that becomes a delta. Why did that happen? What did it not be able to give you? What did this new one give you? And just sort of build like this graph of knowledge around them.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is part of the build practice. You just this sort of meta like commentary on the practice provides this, like, it's just the style of working. Is that a way of thinking about it? Okay.
I think so. It's more open. Like it's less of this top down, you know, you have to use this instead of that now, because we have a new license for it and whatever. And you, like nobody who's going to be working with it ever made that decision. Now it's more of this bottoms up, like, you know, a change was made either way, but how and why and who was involved in that change, and just making that very open and transparent.
Yeah, I mean it's a practicable skill to do this, I guess. Like, you know, like as a byproduct of the thing working, you have to this is what's going on. Because it and like, so building that into the process is interesting. Like I'm trying to think of yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. We'll try it and see if there's frictions and like, you know, where is it hard to talk, you know, like, yeah, where in the process do you write it down, or is it a good thing to piggyback, you know, or this is where the Loom stuff comes in. This is helping me understand how you guys are thinking about it. It's cool.
So do we need to talk more about the scope of the front end, or should we save that for after we do like our first little Shahruz inspired experiment, like the sync, write and deploy code? The reason
my only thing there, or go.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I'm not sure, we've been talking and not sure if there's consensus on how Dave's thinking about the front end, and just want to save him the effort if we're not all on the same page of doing a bunch of design work.
Yeah, I think that I've got the thing in a roundabout starting place to when we want to get together and tear it apart or pick it up, whatever. Like I've got a basic flow that it's a conversation starting place. But yeah, being warmed up and knowing where we're going to build anything is the priority number one, because then we've got a home base. And then it feels like, oh yeah, we put that there. It'll take this long to, you know, work out all the frictions.
Okay.
So yeah, and the design thing we can pick up whenever we need to. It's in a state that's ready to go when we need it.
Okay. Shahruz, what were you going to say?
Yeah, my only thing there was like doing something so simple that there's not so much to discuss about the technique or technical aspect of it, but rather that first call being, here's how the code base is set up. How do we all feel about that? Do we have any suggestions or comments? And you know, just kind of get like that meta layer of how we work going.
Yes.
So text box and a submit button, even if they don't do anything, was just kind of like, all right, well, we'll need that at some point to build on top of. So.
That's what every app basically is.
True.
So start with that.
Yep. Start super simple. So it's obvious what we're doing.
Yeah. And because there's plenty of like, you know, choreography to get all in the same place, you know, in the same in the same fucking build environment, in the same mentality, all that stuff. So
yeah, even having one person create an environment and having the other person rebuild it will be like a game in and of itself. Like, were you able to do it? What went wrong? Do you want to make some notes for the next person that like has the misfortune of debugging Docker in like this specific configuration? Those are all, like I think separating that from what we're actually building may be a very good idea, because it's just more of like a training exercise at that point. That is actually very, very useful.
Just bare bones and everything. It's like it's all the way down to the basics. It's good though. I mean, we'll know how the whole stack builds in.
This goes back to like what I think is most fascinating about this conversation is like we're actually talking about how we work, which is interesting. Like we haven't had to really talk about it yet because it's been more high level. Now we're getting deeper into like technical like building. So we're having to like baseline, because
but also not just technical, like the question of how do we transform Figma designs into technical, and how do we how do those technical constraints affect Figma designs is like, I mean, it feels like exactly in the same arena. It's just maybe like less code dependent, but just as much of this like everything is connected to everything, and pulling on one part means something else falls off the table. Like you have to do it together, but everybody, you know, can't do it. Like we have 5 brains here. Like it's kind of a mess. So how to do that is the like Very, very relevant question.
I mean, the only way to do it is to role play it right now,
Yeah.
because we have to simulate it.
Yep.
And simulating it means like everybody holding the thing together for a little bit so that we can be like, okay, yeah, it's a fun exercise. I mean, yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? So it's not technical in the sense of like code technical, but like this is like the we're getting to work thing, which we've talked about. Like the language of that is sort of it bringing out a part of me. Like I have this sort of mentality that's probably that's conditioned. So there is something here where I think we're all trying to question our conditioning and like how we have worked and trying to baseline.
Yeah.
But there is something that's happening now where we're getting to work, however we want to call that, and we're sort of wanting to redefine that. And the way that we work or play, however, again, it doesn't have to be in code, but there's something, it's more specific, like it's not technical necessarily, but in order to do this, it like we're connecting pieces rather than just throwing, it's less, I don't know, I can't explain it.
It's like less brainstormy. It's like this kind of like, like I still think it's technical. It's not like implementation, I would say, but it's technical in the sense of like design thinking. Maybe like design thinking has different meanings to me and Dave, for example, but like it is like structural kind of thing, I feel like.
Yeah. There's something happening here. We're entering into a different phase right now, and that's like it's tripping everyone up because we're like, what are we doing? It's interesting.
There's a transition that happens where you go from like, you know, what you're seeing in your head that's very low fidelity, and like you feel like you have a strong vision or good enough to explain it to others and like, you know, get their feedback and bounce stuff off. But if you try and like look in your head deeper at like for the detail, you realize there's like 100 decisions that you have to make.
Yeah.
Like you don't have that in there yet. And I feel like now we're getting into that, like, how do we make those decisions get from that one phase to another with 5 of us instead of just the one, you know, one person trying to do those 100 micro decisions. So
yes.
Yep. And not just make them, but triage them, like decide which ones are important, which ones are not, which ones can I make, which ones can we not, like can one other person make, which ones do we have to make together. Like all of them have different like dependencies or sort of, just to how they're even answered. It's definitely new territory for me, but it's great.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm into it. Go ahead, CJ.
I was just gonna say one of the questions I have is like getting back to just like the small building thing. Like when do we want to do that?
Yeah,
because I'm interested.
Yeah, I think that's the next step. But John and I are kind of on a wavelength with the games. I think that's like a next round of experimentation. I don't know when it comes up, but we know that John and I are thinking about it. I don't think I think it's too early to really get into it, but it is like thinking about the games is like sort of how do you keep that at top of mind?
It'll show up. It's it is the third piece in the engine. Like without it, the thing doesn't go. So like, we're talking about like getting things on surfaces, you know, like having the pipes to be able to print out our brains into the internet. But why? So the answer to why is games, and they'll just keep coming back because we need them.
So the other two are hosting and consuming.
Yeah,
creating and consuming.
Yeah. There's also I was thinking for these proposals, like they're not all going to take 5 people, and they're not all going to take like the full length of time. And you know, there is sort of this potential that Kristen and I just like do some brainstorming, jamming on it, but like don't necessarily say that there will be a deliverable X date, but it's more just like setting the stage for when that future work happens, and just making sure that it's findable and referenceable for the future.
Yeah, I mean, some of these things are going to be open-ended projects. Like they're going to you're just planting a seed, and the likelihood that you're going to have enough information to finish the thing it may take a year before
Yep.
it filters in. But having the thing planted and easily tendable is good. So, yeah.
Yep.
All right, so sync coding sesh.
Yep. So I may need to wait until tomorrow to make a clear decision on this because I'll be traveling to Boston to meet up with my company, and no idea what the schedule there looks, but I'll be down to, if y'all want to plan it, like I'll be able to join if I can. Otherwise, tomorrow I should be able to actually put a date down on the calendar.
We can wait, right?
Yeah.
Up CJ.
I'll ping y'all tomorrow.
Is the
I'm
format
eager.
for that like a screen share, and then are other people also like running their own dev instance if they want and following along, or are they just watching and communicating? How are people envisioning that?
I think it kind of depends. I think especially early on, it would be interesting just to have one person build up the environment and see if it works, and then like maybe then they replicate, just so there's no wasted like time and downloading packages. But I kind of like this idea of live streaming it because it puts it in this frame of like it's recorded, it's accessible like for the future. I mean, Twitch could be a solution for this. I think Discord might even do this. I don't know if they record it.
Yep.
But that way it's also instantly encapsulated and like recorded for the future.
Yeah, like it.
Yep.
Don't know if Discord does the recording, but I have seen in other channels, they'll use the voice channel, but they'll just like add a screen share to it. So if somebody's building something and they want people hopping in and out and just kind of like ambiently, following, that's definitely one way of doing it. But this is a little bit more intentional to start.
And even if, I guess, if they don't particularly like live stream itself, like it's easy enough to like set an OBS instance and just like have someone throw it up on Buzzard YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's what we did for Interhacked because the design hackathon, we did all of our, there was like presentations. We did them all through Discord. It was pretty cool. And we had one person who's using OBS, I think, to record everything. And I think it worked fine.
Yep.
Cool.
I could ping him for that flow, and I'm sure it was relatively simple. It was just recording and uploading to YouTube.
Yep. Yeah, I think I can. I'm pretty sure I can give it like a dry test run too. I think I know. I've used OBS and like this kind of thing in the past. I think it should be pretty straightforward.
Could potentially even, I don't know if this makes sense, just live stream it to YouTube.
That's what I was thinking, because they'll record it.
Yep.
Yeah. So then you don't have to do the upload step.
Yep.
And so you'd use OBS to pipe into YouTube. Is that how that goes?
Yeah, they have like a stream key, and you just like copy the stream key into OBS and hit start streaming. And
interesting. Yeah.
It might take like a week or something to get the channel approved for streaming or something.
There's a bit of a layer.
Yeah, I remember there was a delay, so it might just be a good thing to like check in real fast after this call, or just like make sure that it gets done.
Well, we need to get to 100 subscribers too, so we can.
We're well on our way.
Name the thing or whatever.
We can take over the world. Sorry, or maybe not take over the world.
with 100
subscribers.
Yeah. Austin Allred posted his YouTube channel today, and he's like, "Please, people subscribe so I could change the name I set when I was 12."
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh.
Yep.
That's funny. We just have Buzzard right now.
Yeah.
It's good.
Buzzard's pretty great.
Yeah, Buzzard's great.
I don't know what the tag is, but yeah.
Buzz.
Double buzz.
It's still really weird to go
Buzz
between
swerve.
an iPad and a laptop. Every time
Yes.
don't do that.
Yeah.
What else? What else for now?
I wonder if the like little sync coding session, for literally the text field and a submit button, adding, and again, like this is very fluid, and I don't, maybe we kind of almost like role play it in the moment and just see how far we get. But like the idea that the MetaMask stuff isn't too heavy, so that might be something that can fit into there. And then like you have identity posting, where it goes, maybe not as important, but the idea that like we just sort of start the session and all like literally like design on the fly and just be like with you know some mocks as inspiration. Like Dave, I think your stuff looks amazing. Like we kind of have that on the side, but we're not going to point to any place on that as like the hard destination. It's more like let's just play it for a while, and then in doing so, we're going to like figure out all the low level like co-working stuff. But I don't know, just maybe what if we like kind of keep it a little more open ended.
Yeah, like I've done sort of prototyping trial runs like this. You're built. I mean, you can build it to throw it away, build it to, you know, just to feel out the pattern to know what you're going to run into when you build it later. Yeah, and so I think the low end success metric is we built a text area with a button, and you know everything that entails, so that anybody else can, you know, we've got a shared space. And then if that goes smoothly, then, and we're feeling it, we should, sure, we can take a swing at a couple components or whatever, you know, or see what the hell pop. Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing. I don't, sounds good.
Yeah, improv prototype, basically.
I mean, I love to work this way. This is the primary way that I enjoy working, because like the sort of serendipities and like silly, you run yourself into a cul-de-sac, but that's a feature that you didn't know about. The most fun to do this. So yeah, cool. Yeah, this answers this, I think, exercise will answer a bit of what, like, how do you get to the front end, and like how do you scaffold that out and get the JSX in the page and blah blah blah, all this stuff, right? This answers all of that. So cool.
Yeah, I guess like no matter what, we'll need to do and muck around with that stuff anyway, and might as well have some like really open-ended. Yeah, see where it goes.
Yeah, and if we have it recorded, people can see how it got to where it is. So I think that's a good move. So everybody wear a tux.
Ooh, exciting.
Do I have to wear a tux?
You're everybody.
We have tuxedos as part of our nomad kit.
I'm not a part of it.
You don't wear a tuxedo everywhere?
Yeah.
Ugh.
The worst.
Yeah, there's a particular look in Portland right now with the dudes, and it's like smaller and smaller running outfits.
Yeah. Full shorts.
Yeah, just and
they just keep going up.
Yeah, but like there's more and more dude becoming available. Some of these guys are like pretty big, like ripped bearded guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
lots of tattoos too.
Yeah. So like the former lumberjacks have like moved into full-blown jogging attire.
Fitness.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Makes me really want to go to Portland. Just want to see what's going on.
The hipsters have gone healthy.
The hipsters gone healthy.
It's gotta run off that kombucha and craft beer somehow.
Oh yeah. I mean, that is the thing. Kombucha and craft beer on the west coast of the United States is like where it's at. Everyone's puzzling this stuff. It's so funny. Like, yeah. I love kombucha though.
Yeah.
We got into a conversation. I picked a white peach tea kombucha at a natural like grocery store, and the guy who checked us out was like, "Oh yeah, good choice." And then I was like, "Yeah, I just have to be careful not to drink it at night." And he's like, "Why?" And I was like, "You know, because it keeps me up. It has black tea in it." And he's like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna say that it makes you gassy or something." So there was a whole conversation about farting. He's like telling me, so I think he just wanted to talk about farting because his neighbor could hear him farting through the wall. So
holy shit!
Conversation with his neighbor being like, "Can you hear it when I fart?" And he's like, "Can you hear it when I fart?"
It's really breaking down boundaries there. It's amazing.
Kombucha brings people together. You know?
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the point. Right?
Point made.
I won't forget him now. Like,
You
okay,
know, he left
now
his mark.
kombucha means.
Mhm.
Does it make you gassy?
He
No.
gave you a food treasure to keep with you always.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
So, what else?
Let's go on and take a glance at your agenda. That was really, really nice.
The backend API approach and the front end stuff, that'll just go
Yeah,
with the small sync.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I just started using the dots for
I like the dots.
like green light, we're gonna do that.
Mm.
Yellow, like we might do that, but we need to look into something.
I think I already triggered the YouTube thing. I just like quickly, like you just click the button and it says takes 24 hours.
Cool.
Okay,
So
cool.
So that one, what else?
I kind of wanted to just mention, like, I think Dave earlier, you were talking about your Loom video, or maybe like Kristen too. And I was just thinking, actually, like in a way that helped you walking through it, at least helped me solidify some things. I was like, okay, you basically just told me what the query is in your own language. And I was like, okay, well, that's the query we need. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been thinking about all the views in terms of queries anyway. We won't get too much into this, but the things our metaphor is a browser. The thing's a browser. Like this is what I'm starting. The UI is a browser. Like so there's new navigational things that can like pop up nodes and stuff like this, but you know, it's a browser that has a bunch of windows in it that you can store in tabs or something. I don't know. Anyways, so there's something there. But yeah, like the queries, like very quickly you get into like members. That's you can pull back a list of that stuff and those are blocks. And yeah, I think it, yeah.
So is every view a query then?
I think so.
Effectively built on top of queries.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Feels too easy, too simple. I mean, whatever, we'll find out. But if everything's a fractal, then yeah, that
well,
works.
in the way that you could have like one query and like visualize it totally like multiple different ways.
Yeah.
Potentially. Yeah,
I think that what you get is apps. I mean, we can stop this at any time because I've been goofing around in the I'm in concept territory, so I can put it down.
I think we're here with you.
Okay.
Yeah, where we going with that?
Yeah.
So
you just got an open invite. Here it goes.
Now I fall off a cliff.
Let's go.
So you have browsers, right? Or a browser with a sort of mentality that pulls back blocks based on queries, right? And so you think of it like a little browser bar at the top, but you know, whatever the query language is to build the queries in there. And you can pop them in and out, and then like, you know, you can have addition, subtraction stuff. I think these are basic query things, I think. So, you know, like show me all of Kristen's posts, you know, between a date range minus the word tuna or whatever. Show me the inverse of all of those, you know, or whatever, how, you know, these kinds of things. And if all of this stuff is connected, then what you have is this graph view, and there are things like weights of nodes. So like here, like, and those are like waypoints. Like you're in a neighborhood and there, you know, there's like larger nodes within that neighborhood based on context or something related to that query. So like go check one of those out. And then you have like, that's movement. So you have forward and back or whatever, right? Like, so you get a history of something. And then, yeah. So anyways, you can have a bunch of different views of these things, and you know, like what the feature set does creates a potential network of them, right? So like if there are more social features, right, and like sort of game mechanics or ways of viewing the posts or whatever, you get a social network of type, you know, a type here. And like So I'm starting to think of these things as a cartridge or something like this. Like, and then there's multiplayer mode. Anyway, so I lost it. Anyways, the games are cartridges, something like this, and then you get different viewports on it. Something about the browsing interface as the baseline like metaphor, I think. Like, so
Definitely.
desktop is the previous metaphor. And so from desktop, you move to, so from the real world, you get a real world desktop, and then you get a virtualized desktop. And then on that, you get a browser, which is a portal to the world. The portal to the world is the new desktop, right?
Yep.
We're moving out in that direction. So we can take like metaphors from the browser mentality and then expand them out into a UI. I think that this is the seed to plant, because most people have had an experience with a browser. So it gives you a familiarity of usage. You've already built muscle memory around it. Now let's expand that out into something where all the content within what you're browsing is related and all of the instantiations there. So, and then all the different types of views based on, you know, a world, you know, whatever. Yeah. So that's where I've been working. I don't know if, I think it gives us some containment somewhere.
Makes sense.
There's a question about the cartridges.
Yeah.
So games equal cartridges with different viewports. Are cartridges viewports, or do they contain viewports? Like, yeah.
So apps and games here, right? So like, I just like the everything could be a game, right? Like this is a mentality, but like, you know, so say I've been thinking about this, like the PlayStation operating system or the Xbox operating system. It is primarily focused on like playing cartridges, right? It comes from like the Nintendo, you know, the console game world. PC gaming is a sort of different environment. I haven't kept up with what these environments look like, but you can run Microsoft Word next to whatever, you know, Steam or whatever the hell, right? So there is some interplay there where these things are getting mixed up a little bit more. So like, you know, can your browsing environment have like game modes, basically, right? Like, you know, missions or something, right? And then you need to build a browsing environment to accomplish some mission together, or you're publishing to, you know, it's something like this. I don't know if there's, and so.
Wow, I just got hunter-gatherer modes of game browsing, or of browsing.
Yeah, so you can, or you can have an economy, and if you're looking for something, or you can have people who, you know, you can trade sort of knowledge
this is where bounties come. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a style.
Collections.
Right, and that can be multiplayer. You can get a squad together and you can go on a dungeon crawl for information about whatever the hell, right? And the heads up display on this thing is an informational like screen, right? You need to be able to organize information, toss it back and forth, like you're moving through a large, right? So like, what are the how can you make that fun? That like that you're going to be hanging out in this thing. I want to toss that over there, and I want to link that to this. I want to zoom out. I want to be able to navigate into weird ass areas that I don't know about, right? Like, and then the thing should give you like pointers on places that you like that you wouldn't go, right? So, anyways, how do you populate all this stuff? It's got to be games, right? Like, you know, like there's a large scale game that takes place that starts pumping content into the network, right? And then how do you navigate through it? How do you find the good stuff? You know, anyways.
Yeah, it's like missions.
Yeah.
If you choose to accept it. John's thing about cross-person chat, like that would help with like strategizing when you're on a mission. Like you're like, you need to be able to talk about what you're seeing. So it's like, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, oh, really weird that you found that piece of information. Where that, like, I don't want to go through your whole breadcrumbs. Can you talk me through how you got here? Spin up like potentially like if you were sync, like let's just jump on that real quick. Yeah, this thing could be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, so this is where you want to build Loom functionality into the OS.
Yes.
Like, it's all connected, and you just do one of these things and it's part of an ongoing like investigation or whatever the fuck you want to call these things. That obviously a research project or, you know, a collaborative game to figure some, like to publish something or to create some artifact or, you know, whatever. So yeah, this is,
I'm picturing like
modes in here. Sorry, go.
Just sorry, I was taking it somewhere dumb.
No,
No.
I was
Oh,
picturing
please go.
like a very serious true crime podcast that uses this software to figure out something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how, the entertainment possibilities. Like if we can get this thing solid enough to make really stupid ideas, we've done something good.
No, that's a good philosophy.
Yeah, I like having something that like you can tweak into. Oh, that's funny. That's ridiculous. Like,
But you're still like it's still, there's like an educational component here
Yeah.
because you're learning.
Yeah.
Even though it can
Yeah.
be
Through fun.
endless, but that's good. Like learning should be fun, and you should be able to sort of like build games to play with people to learn. So it doesn't feel like it shouldn't feel painful.
Yeah.
I mean, just to riff on the true crime thing, I almost feel like you can start this thing without the crime. You could be like, we have the space to find a crime, and then everybody collaboratively just adds and finds information, and before you know it, you've engineered a true crime podcast from the like backwards in, because you're just open sourcing like knowledge gathering and assembly and organization. Like the possibilities here are actually phenomenal.
Conspiracy tendencies. You're just using the QAnon tendency to make make fun content.
Hopefully for good. Yeah.
Sure. That's the idea. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I think that I like the small scale idea of having like, you know, blogging networks or like, you know, publishing networks of a certain type, right? That you can build a sort of content publishing like communication game or something like this, where like early Tumblr, early Twitter, these things were extremely fun. You're getting to you know, push forward on some of your like thinking, or, you know, you're able to like sort of do like sort of collaborations with people, you know, you're in a hyper conversation or something. Yeah, and if you can have interface that you can build on top of these things that like sort of scopes the style of discourse, right, or interplay, you can, but it's cross compatible with all kinds of other stuff. It's great. I think it's cool. There we go. The browser thing. That's where I'm at. Anybody comes up, if anybody finds like
Exciting.
There's all these, you know, like the browser company, and they're like Brave, and there's all these companies that are doing sort of, if anybody comes across any patterns that are moving the browser forward in a way that it's actually interesting, I think we should steal that stuff or help develop it. How about that? Because I think that there's a lot of pattern stuff there that if we get out in the public, like we can move this thing like more quickly. People want to play with it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think like the browser is ripe for like an update, but all of these browser company, Brave, the Mighty, they're like literally trying to make it easier to pump information into your brain, like the existing information. They're not trying to restructure it. They're not trying to find like give you better ways of navigation or recontextualization. It's more just like, we're going to render it faster, so you could like get even more overwhelmed with your 100 tabs. Like that's not the direction here. So yes, like that. I mean, everybody's, I think, eagerly sort of waiting, but most of these things coming on stage are just like, I mean, if a fast enough browser is fine. That's not my constraint at this point.
Yeah, like it can be slow but useful.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the early library like indexing systems is kind of what I'm thinking of, like something with that as the speed limit. But if the content is good, I would gladly use it on some old terminal that
hanging out in the things forever, because you're getting information you can't get elsewhere.
This is the difference between what was it, Dave? It's like a it was a philosophical discussion, the difference between more and increase or something.
Yeah,
like,
growth versus increase.
Yeah.
It's an indigenous concept, or it came from an indigenous philosopher.
It's subtle, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like not just pumping more information, but it's like increasing depth of understanding.
Yeah. Like you can either it's a quality distinction.
Yeah.
Like growth is, you know, a growth is a gross measure, you know, like let's get more of the thing, and then there are effects at scale. Increase is, it's the relational stuff we're talking about. Like increase the depth of connection, which gives you better context, which gives you better decision making, which is closer to reality, which is more valuable, right? So that like when you find a piece of information through a system that adheres to this sort of mentality, you can trust your view of it more easily, which means that you can move more clearly through an information field. You still need to do work of like, you know, scoping and like doing the multi-perspectival thing, but this is giving you a lot more, you know, it's not just some random thing that somebody handed you and you're like, well, fucking figure it out. Like, yeah, there's the context helps. So yeah.
No.
There's something similar there with something I've been thinking about, which is like that Hic et Nunc post that I shared in that one channel the other day. Like he talks very specifically about wanting to keep things micro, wanting to like steer towards more of like a circular economy. So like the concept of a circular economy where the money that's already inside is being used internally and being spread, as opposed to being reconverted back into like the outside currency. I think there's something there of like, you could have a really strong thing where that currency is spread internally, circularly. That seems to me more like in line with increase, because it increases the depth of things, whereas growth means you want money coming in from outside, which has a different effect. You might make a lot more money that way. You might make a lot more like real money that way, but it's not going to help develop your internal kind of value structure the same way.
Yeah, it inflates the organism effectively. Like it adds a bunch of like sort of short-term mass, but it's stupid. It's stupid muscle effectively. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
it's also bringing in like money, which might be information from the old ecosystem, as opposed to minting fresh and like native to that ecosystem, which also feels relevant.
Yeah, like the internal economy can have smarter money, and then the exchange, you're developing a balance of trade with the like older economies, because you need capital to continue operation. But if the capital needs of the organization are met, and there's like a minimum of like happiness quotient, as long as people are like working on things that they enjoy, and they're being challenged to grow in ways that are in alignment with increase, right? You end up with an abundance in the organization, because everybody's like, fine, it's just more problems to have individual resource to manage, right? Like, you know, like there's a balance of doing it as a group that's more fun. I experienced this in all my companies. There's like a point where I'm like, I don't need any more. What the fuck am I going to do with all this money? It's a problem. And then it's a lot easier to solve that problem of where to put it and how to grow it or not in a group, right? And yeah, so anyways, yeah.
One thing about like this too makes me think immediately about sustainability, like, and that's like tying into the increases. Like if you do have the circular economy and you're recycling kind of the same currency, you're trying to get more for what you already have, kind of a thing. I don't know if that's like totally makes sense, but hopefully.
Say more about the sustainability.
Yeah.
I guess it's like, I'm just thinking like in terms of like a recycling kind of thing. Like if you're recycling, you're kind of reusing the same thing, or upcycling maybe is even better, is taking something that had one purpose and reusing it in a different way another time, or something to that effect. Because I think recycling also maybe is not a perfect thing, because you're using like a lot of energy to do that. And it's like, okay, it's maybe not perfectly circular, and it will maybe like perfectly circular is not possible either. But anyhow, like
But yeah, there's a
I
reason
think it's
that's
an
the third
interesting
one.
like metaphor, and I want to read the piece to kind of like gain a little bit more intuition.
Yeah, so Jordan Hall has a fair bit of logic on this thing with his Civium project. Like he's modeled out an internal economy. We're actually listening to those right now. We haven't hit that yet, but it's like at episode 7 or 8. There's a playlist on his YouTube where he talks about like the functioning of the internal economy. I believe it's more, and I'm reading that debt book. They talk about these like smaller like tribal economies, and they're more communal. They're communist, right? They can be because it's a small group of people who trust each other, which means that you can share a lot of stuff. You know, like there's an efficiency there where you're not in a community where everybody has a giant house and they all have this. Everybody has a fucking drill, you know, and everybody has a car and everybody has a lawnmower. Exactly, right? Which works very well if you're trying to grow an economy, right? Like you need more money in the system and more consumption, right? But there are other models for this. And so some of them don't scale very well though. Like that communal model, if you try to enforce it past a certain size, it turns into like, it just crazy shit happens.
Yeah.
But with a small group or small groups that can do trade with each other and have an internal like sort of debt system or credit, however you want to look at it, like based on the trading of like work done or ideas or, you know, literal like tangible stuff. I don't know. If you get that thing working and there's like an alignment there, the byproduct of that work is probably pretty high quality, which means that selling it to the outside, I think is also a necessity to maintain a permeability and survivability. This is a sustainable like economic model, right? Then you need ethos to operate within that internal economy that makes sense, you know, a way that you trade or whatever. I don't know if any of that made any sense.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like if you have a garden, every vegetable that you harvest, like yes, you're selling it, but you're not just like exploiting the garden. You're making sure that the money that you take in from the outside is actually like going towards replenishing where that vegetable came from and helping other people build their own gardens and like that whole layer. I mean, it's just because you are here and you want to expand and grow this place, but you're trying not to destroy it. I mean, that's sustainability. That's the whole kind of stack here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like tribal logic that goes into these things, and then
Totally.
There's got to be people that are thinking about this. They must be in crypto, because any of these like small scale experiments, you run into this stuff immediately. Like, you know, what is your internal exchange going to look like, and then how do you mediate that exchange with the outside world? Are you completely permeable? Are you, you know, just a node? Are you like a sort of a city state? Is that your intent? You know, like those have different design requirements. And like it pays to sort of pay attention to this stuff as you're playing with these things, because it's good to share. I think that like we're all figuring this shit out at the same time. There are some people like maybe who have been doing like large scale statecraft or something that have like, you know, an understanding, but like there's a different version of this that's the online sort of mini civilization game builder. But yeah, just need a browser for your tribe.
Yeah.
This is where the nomadicism stuff comes in too.
Yeah,
Totally.
Because you get like digital nomad, and then there can be a geographic nomad too. But there's like home based on tribe, I think, but you can move where you need to with the tribe. Yeah.
Yeah, this is where, you know, the sort of distributed models of like real estate ownership or whatever. Like this is where these modelings you can pull from like church organizations and religious organizations, because they've been doing this forever, like longer than capital has. Like syncing up into schools of thought, and then like sending various types of sending people out and creating institutions in a place that is necessary for the public. And there is a byproduct of the work that they're doing as being, you know, necessary or vital to civilization in some way. So there is an exchange of value done there, right? The closest thing we have digitally to this that I know of is the open source movements. And like there is a definite like religiosity around the whole thing. And so, you know, like I guess the GitLabs and these other kinds of things are starting to come in as a way to like sort of funnel resources to projects like this so that they don't have to be like paupers holding up civilization. So anyways, there are models in there that we can look to in building structural things or helping people build structural things that are, yeah, they are more like a church than a company.
It's ritualistic or like habitual. Yeah. And you're taking care of something together, right?
Which I think is a style of business that is going to increasingly become popular.
It has to.
It'll be fringe for a while, but like, you know, the coordinated effort of people who give a shit, like, and have talent and are like sort of sovereign in a way, like they're able to take care of themselves. Like we can go each individually go, you know, work a relationship with the market and make sure our needs are taken care of without too much stress, which is a privileged position to be in. But there are a fair amount of these people, and to live a life full of meaning, like utilizing that position towards some better end is sort of necessary for like spiritual reasons. So yeah.
And it's just more fun.
Yeah. There's stakes, like legitimate stakes, and then you get to see people who get to like do something that they couldn't have done otherwise. You're like, that's fucking good. And you can get so rich. It's fucking, you can have as many yachts as you want.
I just want one yacht.
Yeah, that's as many as you want.
I want an eco-sustainable single yacht so I can do nomadicism with a tribe geographically with Wi-Fi, whatever.
With Wi-Fi.
In the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
Not that much to ask.
Sure. Easy.
Shahruz, you were gonna say something?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask if anybody had posted that Toby Shorin piece from a few days ago about public good and public infrastructure.
I haven't yet. I'm making my way through it.
Have you read it?
I just put it into the inspo. I did, yeah. It's very relevant to the camera stuff, like kind of uncannily so. So, but I absorbed every word of it. Yeah, it's all really good, insightful stuff.
Sweet.
We could read that squad wealth piece together too. I think at some point it's relevant. That those are a good pair.
I'm really curious to reread that now because I remember that being one of my first sort of exposures to like even thinking about this stuff, and like I was like, oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense. But there was like a lot of things where I was like, but like how, you know? And I feel like the how questions are a little more clear now. So yes, super excited.
Yeah, I think their mentality around this stuff I like a lot. I emailed Toby Shorin like a year and a half ago or something, maybe a little bit longer, when we were like doing the Ponder stuff, and it was very much like still like a SaaS product kind of thing. And he's like, yeah, I like, it's interesting, but like I'm more interested in things being sort of open and common and this other stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? He's right, but how is he right? And so, you know, I'm hoping that the next email, I had never responded to him. So this will be my response if we ever get this thing going.
I've been thinking about what you said 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You gotta reply straight to that email.
I get it.
Keep all the context.
It took me 2 years, but I finally understand.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know this, but he provided me a white whale. I've been hunting it.
That's good.
I mean, it is genuinely amazing how early some people are on like understanding that the constraints of this next kind of phase and what that brings about. Like I'm catching up so much, and I've been so deep in it for like the past year.
Yep.
And I still have so much to catch up on. It's crazy.
Yeah, like I got a whiff of this stuff in like 2017, and it's just now like crystallizing. Yeah, because it just looked like a stew for the longest time. I'm like, it all kind of looks like something, but yeah, it's fun. Like, I don't know, these things you don't get to get a wave like this often, so it's nice.
Interesting. I didn't know other internet squad was so big.
How many people?
They've got 3, 6, 9, 12, like 15-ish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought they were like 6 people.
Was included in there, and Aaron Lewis, John Palmer.
All of these people, I've been poking around at their work independently, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Also, the site is just so pleasant to look at. Oh my gosh.
It helps that they're all designers. They have like publishing sensibilities. It's irritating. All this stuff, that's fine. Like John Palmer, that dude's understanding of like how the shit works, and then he can design it.
Yep.
Shouldn't be allowed.
He basically made Mirror, like he single-handedly kind of pivoted Mirror to some extent into more of like, hey, we figured out fundraising, which is a gigantic deal on the internet for independent folks. Whereas like initially it really felt like Mirror was like, oh, Substack, but crypto.
Yep.
And that's not my view of them post like John Palmer experimentation.
Yeah, the first time I saw that white paper where it's just like, this was funded by Mirror, here's the token, here's the address, here's the proof, and I'm just like, whoa, that's weird. That did not exist before, and that like is a thing I'm looking at now. It's really wild.
Wait, can I get I'm like totally not caught up on Mirror at all. Like, where do I jump in? Because like it keeps coming up in conversations. I just go to the website. I'm just confused every time, just a little bit.
I think the John Palmer post, which was just like $essay. I'll post the link.
Yeah,
that was at least for me my intro.
I think Kristen might have. Okay, I think Kristen posted it a while back. I don't think I ever ended up reading it. Okay, I'll check that out for sure.
This is why we got to have context on our consumption posts.
Yeah,
because like the that came up with the Toby Short or the other internet post about public good. I'm like, all I want to do is like tell all of you that one, it exists, and we're likely all going to run into it. But then I don't know what to do with all the brain shit that's popping up in relationship to it, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. This is
his stuff also, like he's dealing with the abstracts and trying to express what is possible. And then there's the other side of things where you're thinking more like, what is the use case? What do I actually want to do that I couldn't do on the internet before? And like, what do these new systems like incentivize and enable? So yeah, I feel like there are different kind of territories, but they work together because somebody needs to keep like looking way forward and expressing what's possible there, and then people need to be building like what's usable today that might be, you know, really essential in a year or two's time, but needs to get thought from the ground up right now.
That conversation, like doing a conversation around that thing, I think is interesting. I mean, as a general thing, because again,
say it in your words, Steve.
Well, what I was hearing there is like this, and I approach these things like I've probably already forgotten the dialectic, but it's the what's possible in the sort of grand narrative or design fiction sense or whatever. Like here are philosophical logics that are being enacted into the world. Like, because technology allows us to do this, like, you know, in the case of this one, like, you know, what public goods are easy to talk about. Now the technology is here where we have to talk about what that means, right? And then, okay, so that there's an opportunity landscape there in my mind. Like, this is a place that you can play and make new things, and those things don't exist anymore. So like, what is the pragmatic like implementation of these philosophical engineering possibility, whatever the hell it is, or marketing or whatever. So yeah, pragmatic like instantiation of the larger idea. So when I'm reading these things, I'm running those filters pretty like all the time. I don't know if it's an entrepreneurial tick. Something.
Yeah, I usually can't sit and read for a long time, especially if there's something that's like, I'm reading a paragraph and now I want to go and riff on this idea myself, and I need to interrupt my reading to go and do that. But trying to slow myself down and be more mindful of all the information there is to absorb that's already developed, as opposed to trying to get there myself too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think this might be a generational thing too, like because well, at least me, like I was in a lower information environment. Like it was a lot harder to find how things are being. Now you've got everybody online talking about everything all the time, whereas before you had like two people and you'd have to like dig them up and then sort of stick together a worldview and then try to build something to, you know, there's a fire hose of understanding now, and sort of picking your perspectives and then sort of working to understand those perspectives as a group can like help your individual like relationship to building in the technologies. I think that we're doing a decent job of that, or we have. There are other practices that we can do there that are probably useful to other people. I mean, it has been for me, because like when I can hear you, Shahruz, or John, or any of you like talk about how you are seeing the landscape and where you are in relationship to it, like I can compare where I sit in relationship to whatever the possibility of that thing is. Yeah.
It's like getting bifocal vision instead of mono. And you just instantly get depth and relative positioning and all of this magical stuff with it.
You get a parallax view of the thing and that dimensionality. Yeah, or you can see that if or what is even there, like in the case of like something not being defined at all, right? Because the observation of it is defining it. Like that when you're this new, you're just like, well, okay, it's back to that, like now how do we build our own design visions or fictions in the larger sphere of what's possible. And so like Toby Shorn and them have like given here is a sphere of a direction of the world, right? Okay, so now we can take that logic and test it in some instantiation. And if there's a virtuous cycle with reality there, then the world will tell you. People just start using the fucking thing. They'll start using language that you've been using forever. Like, oh yeah, that's how that works. Yeah, it's cool.
So parallax, like you could use stereoscopic here too, right? Yeah.
This came from another conversation with a Jason Wong guy. Basically, like if you have people to work with who are tapped into the same hyper conversation, that's what this is. Like there's a conversation out there and there are a bunch of different perspectives that are shaping it, right? And if you can find other people who are sensitive to that conversation, you can coordinate with them to help enact it, or to flesh out the conversation, or do the thing that you were talking about, Shahruz, where you have like a glimmer of it, but you need to get all of the decisions into the world. And that's a lot easier when you have other people to narrow the decision field. But yeah, and then when you have more people, you get the multi-perspectival thing or the stereoscopic thing. When you have one other person, you can do that. So yeah, this is I think important for people who have been working alone a lot, like, or who have like sort of isolationist tendencies for whatever reason. Having them understand that.
Are you talking to yourself right now?
Yeah.
Keep going.
Sorry.
No, there's a reminder thing for you. This is for you, Dave.
Well, I'm also right now I'm thinking of like 10 people.
Yeah.
So
but you are talking about it from a place of knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's fine.
Because there's an interesting when someone starts talking and saying you. It's like, wait, who are you talking to? And I was like, you're talking to yourself.
Yeah.
anyhow, yeah. So it just there's an on-ramp too. I think that why I find this interesting is trying to describe how we're working with each other to people for whom they have not experienced working like, and that's a lot of people, most people. Yeah, it's you're doing the same thing you've done before, but there is a
yeah, it's like healthy groups, healthy, like there's
Yeah.
collective styles of working. I mean, yeah, there seems like we're getting a proliferation of new technologies that are enabling this kind of work specifically. So not only can we do the design fiction around this is like hypothetically possible, it's also pragmatically possible. We have the tech to do it. So
it's necessary.
and
We're
everyone
doing it.
like, yeah, I mean, people are just eating this up too.
Well,
Like I feel
yeah.
like we're there for it. We're like, yeah, like the more the better. Fire hose me with this shit, please.
Yeah, there's a mentality. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Real quick, it's just fascinating that like things like a DAO and like all these new kind of organization structures are social inventions on top of the tech that doesn't have any opinions about it. The tech is literally just like, here's distributed kind of database and processing stuff.
It's like a protocol.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then it's the fact that like so many, people that have worked in tech also understand the inherent problems of how these big tech companies work and what those jobs look like and what that does to the individual that's contributing to them. Like it's a social thing that's being figured out because it's so important to the people that are actively participating in it.
This is the fundamental shift between like where we've been like just replicating or duplicating like things out in the world through technology instead of using technology for what it's good for, like work with it, like give the tech its own, like there's a sort of like giving the technology its own life in a way, like you're working with it, like let it do its thing instead of
You're not asking it to solve everything. You're just like, you do your thing over here. We're gonna coexist.
Yes, instead of making it completely blend into the background, which is what a lot of like Dave and I have talked about this, where it's like make it as slick as possible. Like you can't tell that you're using anything. Well, why would you do that? You are using something, and then it like sneakily like snakes into your brain. And this is why Facebook is horrible. Like there's like addiction stuff, and like the people building it's the same sort of thing. Like everyone's like getting sick because they can't see it because they're not working. It's like it's really weird. It's like a strange
it has a viral quality to it. So because it's powerful, and if you don't sort of pay attention to how you're using the thing, but there are people for whom they want to work around this stuff because it's the most fun thing to do. So like, what is the relationship to working around these things,
in
knowing
a sustainable way
that stuff that you just described is there is a potential for it, but like putting it in a box and being afraid of the thing doesn't work. Like it's not a workable mentality. So what does the relationship look like when you approach it sort of? Part of this is in a group, right? So that you can spread the sort of potential for toxicity, like because you can, if you're alone with a computer and like you're not talking to anybody and you're not like sort of doing the journalistic aspect of this, it is very easy to tunnel your way into like a micro reality, because it's there. You're going to have more and more compelling reasons to do this if you're not connected to people. So the mentality here that I see is making working in this way more fun and productive. Like it's you get to get to the same level of like sort of like deep craft or however you want to think about it, like interesting problem solving, but the component nature of how you get there is different. Like you're doing smaller batches of like thinking across a broader area or whatever. Like that's what we're, rather than like everybody go and build this fucking crazy. Yeah, I don't know. There's some change in mentality in the like the bite sizability of the stuff. I don't know. Maybe that changes when you get like deeper teamwork. I mean, this is why they're able to do this public good thing, which is such a broad nuance, because they've been thinking together this other internet group. They have been thinking together for years now. So you get this vision that is very clear. That's my rant.
Clear and shapely.
Shapely.
Yeah. Well, like CJ just put in the chat, to avoid tunneling into your own micro reality, you have to work with people.
Yeah.
So you get a more shapely, like it's more not well-rounded, but it's just there's different facets to the thing. So it's richer. Like it has like a more gravity. There's more on-ramps to it. More people can like see it. And all of these things are in stereoscopic or parallax views. So
or whatever is the like next version of that, like where you have more than two. You have a graph that you can just rotate as needed, zoom, unzoom. Yeah.
That's the sort of holographic thing. Or that's the feel of it.
Yeah, that's them tapping into that, maybe with the wrong words.
There's no wrong words here. All the words are
I was
right.
wrong.
Incorrect. Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm very curious about like this mentality and how it jumps to a broader like community.
So we've been chatting about doing, did we talk about this or is it just in the chat? A blog club that's open to the public. We could host like conversations with a broader audience where, hey, we want to talk about this article, who wants to join? And I don't know how we can structure what that looks like, how many people can join, how like who can join, like that kind of thing. But
that is a very, very interesting conversation that I like very, very down for, because I mean, really quickly, like I was hosting the blog club that, you know, Web Sobin started, Shahruz, just for context, it was like a weekly call, 10 people, maybe, if that. We just sort of spread it around on Twitter, see what's interest. And it always felt like there was like a layer of the community that was missing. It was like, why would you try to trap it here in Discord? Like, well, what is the point? Like, we all found each other. We're all discussing this stuff. We're all writing notes together. Towards what? And it's like having that funnel into things that are being built and referencing back out towards like the group writing things together. I mean, there is a very, very interesting, like Kristen called it an API to the outside world. And that's a very like spot on way of putting it.
Social API.
Yeah.
I have people hitting me up right now because I put in my Twitter bio, like just I'm interested in Web3 DAO philosophy stuff, and then
everyone's like, "What are you doing here?
Like, what's up? What's going on?"
I'm like, whoa.
Funny, I have like avoided
crazy
because I don't know what kind of response I'll get, and I'm like, "Am I ready to have these conversations with people? Do I want to?"
The people that are following me are like, well, I don't know anymore, but like they tend to be like interesting builder types.
Yeah.
So I think if I were to push out a message, there'd be probably interesting people like in that.
That's good.
But not too many. I mean,
is there anybody that's reached out to you that's done something already? Because I'm still like, I've pushed back the Mirror fundraise because I'm still like seeking out advice from all sorts of folks. And
I have some people who have been around the ecosystem for a while. They haven't reached out, but we've been following each other like for a few years. I could ping. I mean, if I ping some of these,
I think I'm in the same boat. I guess if you already had like inbound that you were already talking to, but like I'm in that same boat with Toby, where like I'm gonna hit him up with docs like in a week or two's time with camera stuff. So
got it. Yeah, I have a few builder types in that. I think nobody that I'm talking to right now, though. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
I'm thinking about Beamer. I don't know if you met up with him, but
no, that's right. Beamer is probably.
I am today.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, in like a couple hours.
Cool. Yeah, he's more of the like individual, like he's in communities, he's like doing shit, but I don't know that he's part of like he has I don't know if a business partner is the right term for this guy. He's a partner that he works with, but I'm curious. I don't know if he's doing any squad stuff. I'm curious if he knows anyone that is though.
He might.
Yay. Tell Beamer we said hi.
Yeah.
I will. Yeah.
John has to leave soon.
It's a good time to call
but
it.
I would love to. Yep.
It's crazy
as usual.
Time flies.
Yep.
Yep.
Time has been really
Yes.
weird lately. I've like
Oh
lost
yeah.
track of it. It's really fucked up.
Yeah. Also, just bouncing between time zones just keeps breaking my brain.
Well, there's this
Oof.
thing with nomadism where you're going from place to place, and it's a force function on like personal growth if you're like looking at it in the way that we are. So there's a lot of reflection on like past ways of seeing things. So there's like memory stuff, and so it's like
Yeah.
time's getting like there's weird things that are happening. And I'm just like, what? Like, I don't know how to
Yeah.
think of time anymore. Like I get linear time as a way of syncing with people, like it's a necessary function, but there's this like deeper understanding of what time is. What are you
What?
chugglehead doing?
Nothing. I'm just talking about how linear time's cool.
A linear time doesn't exist.
John has to go. It's time.
Yeah, it's linear time for
This time.
The real question is, when will I get rid of my Apple Watch?
That is the real question.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
My friends that were in town, Adam and Aaron, didn't have like any of those like, and I was like, I want a normal watch. Like, look at that. It looks like nice.
We'll build a buzzard watch.
Oh, actually, I might still have a small OLED screen. I was gonna build a watch at some point.
There you go. Some duct tape and an OLED screen, you're good to go.
Duct tape and OLED screen, perfect.
Okay, quick question for John and anyone else, but John is most likely to have seen, there's this woman, I forget what her name is, on Twitter in our little community who is building like this thing where you can tweet from lucid dream state. So it's not, you don't necessarily have to tweet, but it's somehow using, like she created this like
Only
thing
tweeting.
that you're wearing, and she's teaching herself how to,
Wow.
and I'm like, what? So
No, I haven't
Yeah,
seen this.
that's
This
the
is
next
amazing.
step, right? Like you're sleeping and communicating with like, I don't know who,
Yeah.
somehow like in a different like time space. Like that's
Oh,
great.
Goodness.
That'll be the second interface we build.
Yeah.
A text area and a button. The next one is a sleep sensor
Easy.
that spits out blocks.
I mean, that could supersede everything being done in VR if they can figure out multiplayer lucid dreaming in some way.
Exactly.
Inception, here we come.
That's what we're doing now. Multiplayer lucid dreaming.
Mhm.
And that's
True.
the note to watch Waking Life for everybody that hasn't, which keeps coming up in conversation.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, we got to figure out the timing for our
Yeah.
sync,
Yep.
and then
I'll ping that tomorrow.
Circle tomorrow. Yep.
cool.
Circle back. I should find that video.
No bad media. Only good media.
That's a good media.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Till next time.
Enjoy the rest of
Sweet.
your Tuesdays. Yep.
Video.
Good there.
Peace.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 Bye.